Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of New Video Let's Talk. Today we have Rob Michaels, a director, a writer, a superhero known as Habib also. But honestly, bro, thank you so much for taking the time to come, sit with us in the team. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, and what got you into your career?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Super happy to be on the podcast. I am from, my family's from Iraq, and I was born in Jordan and then moved here when I was 2, and just been in Toronto pretty much like ever since. My background, funny enough, is I went to school for math and business, being a good Arab boy. I was planning on going to law school because that's what my parents wanted me to do. And then, halfway into like my 5-year program, I realized that I really had a passion for film and TV, and I thought it was just like this crazy dream that would never happen. And then when I graduated, my program had all these co-op jobs that I would study and then work or whatever. And then when I graduated, I remember thinking like, oh, cool. Now I just get like a co-op job that never ends. It sounds awful.
Spooky.
And then I just decided to go for it when I graduated. I got a job in finance, but I was starting to take classes at Second City in the meantime. And then eventually things just kind of snowballed, and I've been writing for TV. I've been directing, I was going to say film. Directed one feature film, directed a bunch of sketch comedy, I've just been doing all of that.
That's crazy. And I was going to say, out of all the things you've mentioned, you've mentioned a lot of talents. Which one started first? Was it the acting, the directing, the writing? What did you get your head into first?
It was writing. It was I remember I was watching The Office, and it was during exam time, and I was always looking forward to taking a food break and not studying so that I could watch a few episodes of The Office while I was eating. And then I remember in the series finale, right before the series finale, they had this 40-minute special that was behind the scenes of what it's like, working at the office, with interviews with the producers and the writers and the actors, and showing all this behind the scenes footage. And I was like, this is the coolest job ever. And I thought man, people write this show, this would be a dream job. And that's what made me that's what I wanted to do. Then I started taking. Then it was super basic, and I read Tina Fey's book. And in her book, she mentions, because I was like, oh, I want to be Tina Fey. I want to do SNL. I want to be I want to have my own show. She wrote Mean Girls. She acted in it. Star of 30 Rock, wrote 30 Rock, created it. And I was like, oh, that's what I would want to do. So I read her book, and she mentioned how she got started at Second City, and she started just taking improv classes, and then everything kind of snowballed from there. So that's what I did. And then once I was taking classes, I was doing all these improv classes, I realized I also really enjoy performing. Writing was always the main goal, but I was like, oh, it would be so cool to write and perform in the stuff that I write. So then that's kind of how I started performing as well. And then when I started to create sketches online for the YouTube channel, I then got into directing because I was a control freak and I wanted to just be able to really execute my vision, and I had all these ideas and how I wanted them to look. So then that's how I kind of fell into the directing as well. And that's kind of natural in the industry. You kind of have to just do everything. And I would edit my own videos and learn how to edit as well, which really helps you as a writer, because then you're you realize when you're watching the edit, the script that you wrote that you thought was so funny, you're watching it after and you're like, this is way too long. This, I need to cut half of this, get to the point faster, and then that helps your writing. Anyway, it's really good to just kind of do everything and get experience in it.
And when you say that the YouTube channel, is that the Wishful Genius, right? How did that start? When did you decide to create that, and why is it called the Wishful Genius?
About a year into doing classes at Second City, I met my friends, their names are Mike. Yeah, I met my friends Mike and Jackson, and they have a YouTube sketch channel called Trophy Husbands. And I was watching their videos and I was blown away by how funny they were. And they were very similar in the sense of they were high production value, these really unique concepts. And then my friend Fatty, that I went to high school with, we were the only people we both had the same kind of realization of we both want to get into the entertainment industry, but we both went to school for something completely different.
Yeah.
And we were the only two, like, he was also Arab. So we're like, oh, we're the only two Arabs in the world who want to be comedians. This is crazy. So he was like, we should just start a sketch channel. And I'd seen my friends Mike and Jackson make their sketch channel. I was like, oh, this is something we can do.
Sorry, what year was this?
This is 2017.
Okay, cool.
We released our first sketch in 2018. So we started filming some stuff like in like November, September. Yeah, around like September, October, November. I don't remember when exactly, but it was around that time. No, it wouldn't have been September. It would have been like October, November. We filmed 2 sketches. We released them. One of them we didn't release at all because it was terrible. And then the second one we did release, and the third one we released them in the new year in 2018. And we were going back to why we named it Wishful Genies. Well, because we're both Middle Eastern, we had this like silly like idea of like I really like, you know, paradoxes, right? Or what's the word I'm looking for?
Paradigm?
No. It's like opposites, but they're true. Or not? Yeah, it's like a contradiction that's true.
I want to say a word, but I feel like it's completely wrong.
Yeah.
Oxymoron.
It's an oxymoron. Yeah, that's what it is. There you go.
Let's go.
I really like. I think oxymorons are just like comedic, inherently comedic. So I like the idea of genies because they are Middle Eastern and whatnot. Yeah. And then to be like a wishful genie, it's like, you know, you make magic, but you're still like wishing to get discovered. So it's like this silly thing that not a single person in the world has ever come to that conclusion themselves, but that was like the meaning behind the name of the sketch channel.
How long does it take you guys from like you make an idea to actually like pick that idea and then run it out?
So I think like sometimes I'll have like stupid ideas that I think are funny, and I just like have my notepad on my phone that I'll write down ideas, and then if I like go back to that idea a week later or 2 weeks later or like even months later, sometimes like I'll go and I'll read through and I'll be like, oh, that's still funny. I'll then try to turn that into like a sketch, or like I'll have other ideas. Like I'll usually like write an idea and then I'll write bullet points underneath of like what else is funny about that, and then I'll try to turn that into a sketch. Sometimes I could write a sketch in a day, sometimes it takes me like a few days, sometimes it'll, you know, well, usually it doesn't take me longer than like 2 days, but then I'll like tweak it for a week where I just keep going back and trying to make it funnier, or like fix things or change the order of things, and then I'll like send it to a couple of friends for feedback. So all of that, you know, give that a couple of weeks, and then I'll message my team that we film stuff with, so like Fatty and also Kenzie, who's our cinematographer. He's always super busy because he's like working in the industry as well, so it's just a matter of his availability too. So sometimes we have to wait like a month until he's available so we could film something. Then when we go film it, it takes at least like a couple of weeks, even sometimes a month, to like get everything ready, where it's like costumes, finding a location, casting all the actors, you know, just like getting all of that set up. Then we show up on the day of, we film it. Maybe it's a 2-day shoot, maybe it's a 3-day shoot if there's like a lot of locations, like the superhero one. That was a 4-day shoot. And then we go into editing, and sometimes you know, might edit it in like a week. We might edit it in like months. It just depends on like our schedules. It depends on how much work the edit is. Like some of our videos are a little bit easier, where it's just like a little bit back and forth. We can cut that together. It might take me like a full day or 2 days, usually at least 2 days, to like edit it, and that'll be the rough edit, and then we'll like go back and forth with like music or sound editing and fixing things up. But then other times it's a lot more complicated because the edit it's a more complicated sketch.
Makes sense.
Go ahead.
Is the superhero one that you're probably most proud of at this point?
Yeah, I would say so, because it was a beast. It took us like 5 months. That one took 5 months.
Okay.
To make, from like when I wrote it in like September and we filmed it in November, and then more than 5 months. Filmed it in November, and then we edited it, and it was ready by like the end of December. Like we had a rough cut by the end of December, and then we had someone do VFX in January, and then we had someone do the sound design in February. We were just at the mercy of all of our friends who were willing to do the work for free or for like a minimal budget. So we needed to wait until they were free. So that's why. And then we finished the sound editing in February, and then we released it like March 1st. We actually had a scene that we cut the night before, like midnight the night before. We had a scene that like we were like, oh, this isn't working. Like it just came to our attention that
what
like
was
this.
It?
So we had this scene initially in the sketch that was like, it was at the very end of the sketch where it was, I had to convince my parents to be in the sketch. Those are my real parents.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Video.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow,
Okay, that's funny.
that's amazing.
That's a whole other story. But yeah, like we were like, where are we gonna find Middle Eastern actors that are in like, you know, their like 40s or 50s or 60s or whatever, that would be willing to be in our sketch in the middle of like COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
So I just like begged my parents, and then they were like, we didn't want you to be an actor. You want us to act now? Like, you lost your mind. And I swear to God, I had to. It took me 3 days to convince them. Where like I was sitting with them for hours each day to try to convince them. Where I would show them clips of The Office with Mindy Kaling's parents in the show, being like, that could be us. I showed them clips of Master of None, same thing. I was like, those are his real parents. So then they were like okay with the idea. Like they were starting to warm up to it. They were so worried about what other people would say. Like, what are the Arabs going to say about us? They're going to think we're a joke. Like, you know, we've become actors. Like, oh no, that's so disgraceful. And I was like they were so not on board. And then what really convinced them was, I was like, hey, listen, if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it, but just know that you're like, this could really help my career, and you're not doing it because you're afraid of like what other people might say. And that hurt them. They were like, okay, all right, fine, we'll do it. They were like, on the condition that your sister has to be in it too. And I was like, okay, fuck. I guess I'll write a scene for her. And then so I wrote this scene that was at the very end. She reveals that she has superpowers too, and my dad is like, women can't be superheroes, like get back, go make us tea, because that is so true. Like there's so much misogyny in the Arab culture. But then when we were showing it, it's truly like, people of color thought it was hilarious because they get it.
It is hilarious.
We
so
showed
funny.
white people,
so
and
funny.
white people were like, oh no, we hate this. This like leaves such a bad taste in our mouths, and we're like, this is like the reality of Middle Eastern culture. We're trying to make fun of it. And then they were just like, they felt so uncomfortable with it that we were just like, let's just cut the scene and we'll do that kind of commentary on its own. Like we'll do like a female superhero sketch, like where she's the focus. We'll comment on that stuff on our own or whatever. So we cut that scene from the sketch, and I think it did help, because I think like, especially if that sketch ended with like that kind of like a little bit of a negative, like a lot of people maybe would have not felt comfortable and maybe like wouldn't have shared it as much. Like I don't know.
It's crazy how like the little details count. Like, you know, like that little thing could have shifted how the whole thing looked.
100%. Yeah, you never know how people are gonna react. So we played it safe, even though we all thought it was like very funny. My sister was so bummed too, but she was like, I get it. But yeah.
And how did you even create that idea of the Arab superhero, Habib?
Yeah, so basically what happened was I was talking, me and my buddy are big Marvel fans. My buddy Jonathan Shabu, he's such a funny dude. Met him at Second City. The only other Iraqi I know that is doing comedy. That was at the time. I've met like a couple since, but so he and I were just like shooting the shit about Marvel and whatnot, and we were talking about how, like, you know, he's got to get in shape because they keep coming, because he's like more of an actor and I'm like more of the writer. And I told him that he has to get in shape for like when Marvel eventually comes and wants to cast an Arab superhero, because they keep coming to Toronto. Like they cast Simu Liu from Toronto, they cast like Miss Marvel from Toronto, and I was like, Toronto's diverse, like they're gonna come to us when they need an Arab. And he was like, oh well, like why don't we just make our own Arab superhero? And I was like, yeah bro, with what budget? Like, are you nuts? And then I was like thinking about the idea later, and I was like thinking about it, and I was like, man, like even if I did become a superhero, my parents would still prefer if I were a doctor. And that was the idea that I was like, great, that's a comedy sketch. I was like, we can't make our own Arab superhero, but we can do a comedy sketch about what an Arab superhero would struggle with. And so then I just like came up with a bunch of other jokes. And the reason I made it a trailer is because I kept coming up with jokes that were like in different scenarios. And I was like, this won't all make sense in one scene. So I made it a trailer to make it like, to make sense that they were all these different scenes together.
Please tell me there's a movie coming out.
Oh man, like fingers crossed. We're trying to make it. We've, you know, I can't talk too much about like what kind of has come from it, but we're working on it. We'll see if anything ever happens from it. But I
feel like that would blow, man. Because I'm not gonna lie, like we were watching and like actually like genuine laughs, like just like, that shit was funny.
I think that's the cool part about like what you do is like you try to make jokes about stuff that's so real that people like try to ignore maybe, or like it's right in front of you and it's like it's better to laugh about it and kind of like show everyone that's there, right?
Yeah, totally. And that was like a big thing too, or you know, we're trying to like show production companies and networks like, look at the demand that's there. Like this is content that's never been done before. Like we haven't seen humor like this, because these stories aren't ever being told. So you know, hopefully, you know, one day we'll get to see Habib on the big screen.
I'd love to, bro.
Is it hard to like keep up with like comedy right now, just because like so much is like, I guess people are really, I guess, judgmental with some of the stuff you put out, right? Or what you say. Because, like, with the culture of this whole woke stuff, right? It's like you could say something, people take it completely wrong, and then it's no longer a joke, but it was said as a joke.
Yeah, I think it's tough, and it's hard to know like how things are going to be received sometimes. You have to just be like hyper conscious, I feel. There's some other comedians who like go the complete opposite way. They're like, I'm going to say whatever I want. I don't care. Excuse me.
Schultze?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Andrew Schultz?
Exactly. Whereas, like, I don't know, I think it's maybe because I, like, have come up through the Second City, that the Second City is so conscious with, like, all of the wokeness that's kind of been ingrained in me. So I try, like, I still make fun of things, but I'm always making sure that I'm punching up and, like, you know, making sure that I'm, like, yeah, I'm not punching down. And, you know, but there are times, like, the one thing that I will draw the line on is I'll make jokes about being Arab and, like, I don't care because, like, this is my experience. You know what I mean? Like, one time, like, someone was like, oh, like, Arabs aren't always late. Like, that's a stereotype. And I was like, yes, we are. Literally, like, my life has been like, oh, we have to be somewhere at 6 o'clock. And then at, like, 5:55, my dad's like, all right, let's get ready. Like, literally, that's been my whole experience. So I'm like, oh, I don't care about, like, making fun of Arab stereotypes because, like, they are true sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's tough to say. I am pretty conscious about. It's always like, I don't know. I think it's just like you want to make sure that you're still saying things and making a point, but you want to make sure that the point is like not. Yeah, you're just like not punching down on people.
Would you say that comedy is like dynamic and not static? Like it does change with time and.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like you can't go back, like even going back and watching something like some of my favorite movies when I was growing up, like 40-Year-Old Virgin or something. I haven't seen it in a long time,
It's
but
so
I
funny.
imagine there's for sure jokes there that like probably don't hold up.
Yeah.
Or like even going back, like watching old comedies, like even watching old Second City shows where sometimes we have to do we do archive scenes, which are like old Second City scenes. You have to just like change them. Like there's a scene that's on the main stage right now called Pictionary, and it starts off with it was an old Steve Carell scene, and the whole dynamic of it is like the guys are fighting with like the girls about like a board game, but like it was so much more aggressive the way it was before because like the joke back in the 90s was like, oh, I hate my wife, like, you know what I mean? Whereas like that doesn't fly anymore. You know what I mean? So that's always like a concern. Yeah, comedy's always changing. Things are changing. You got to be conscious. A big thing is like writing better female characters. That was always a thing in the past too, where that wasn't like, it was always like men in writers' rooms and like women were just like in stuff to be their girlfriends or moms. You know what I mean?
Like
So it's always changing, and it's always good to be conscious of that. And some people complain that it's like woke, and I agree sometimes it's like the wokeness can be taken too far, but I think there is like a level of, you know, awareness that you should have around doing comedy. Like you can still be really funny and not offend people, you know?
For sure. And I guess like let's dive into your first film you directed, you know, like the first film. How was that whole experience?
It was wild. It was chaotic but amazing at the same time. It was just like I had a lot of imposter syndrome going into it, to be honest, because like I had filmed sketches before, but I had never done a full feature film. And so when
Can you touch on that? Just because like I've experienced imposter syndrome as well, where I feel like I'm not supposed to be in a room. I know I've done the work to be in that room, but like for some reason I don't feel like I'm supposed to be there. Like can you touch on that and like how you got over that, I guess?
You get over by just like fake it till you make it. Like just act like you belong there. You know, don't hold back. Don't be shy. Like, you know, say your ideas, even if they get shut down for whatever reason, like especially like in writers' rooms, I had the same thing where like my first writers' room ever, just like you have to put yourself out there in order for you to have any sort of success. And they teach you that at Second City too. Like that was like a big thing that's instilled in you when you start taking classes, is like when you're doing improv. And that's like a great thing about improv, is like just try things out. If you fail, who cares? We're never going to see that scene again. No one's judging. Just like take risks, right? Yeah. And make big choices, and because the big choices are what's going to get you somewhere. You know, like it might lead to a great scene, or at least it's not going to lead. It's going to lead to a not boring scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with imposter syndrome, I was definitely nervous going into it, but at the end of the day, like I just did so much to prepare. Like I already had a bunch of experience from filming sketches that I didn't realize like how similar it actually was to going on a film set, that it would be mostly the same. Just like now people are paid. Now I have a full team hired to support me, as opposed to like doing Wishful Genie stuff where it was like me doing so much of the like at the work of every department. You know what I mean? Like we don't have the money to hire departments. So we're doing like everything ourselves. So it was great in that sense. And I think, just like I watched so many YouTube videos about directing, and even though like it was like a bunch of stuff that I already kind of knew innately, but then I was like putting like school terminology behind some of the things that I already knew. You know what I mean? Like learning like the reasoning, like before I would film sketches just based off of how I felt, but now I learned like the logic of like why you get certain shots, and I was like, it was already kind of there. Yeah, it was already there. Yeah. I was doing it innately, but now I know the reasoning like from a pure, educational point of view or whatever. So like I went into it a little nervous for sure, but after the first day I felt a lot better. Just like you have the day under your belt, and it is what it is. You just have to make sure that you are making like I gave some notes to the actors, and then you start to see the scenes get better, and then that makes yourself feel better, and then it by default like you assume that the rest of the crew is like starting to gain trust in you. I like to imagine that they did at that point. Like it's just, you just gotta like go in there and act like you belong, and people will just assume that you belong. It's like it's like the oldest trick in the book. Like if you walk into a bar confidently, like they're not gonna assume that you don't want it, like that you can't be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was there anything you kind of learned as a first-time director that you didn't expect to kind of happen, or?
I guess I just saw behind the scenes like how the sausage is made, in terms of like how producers think, and how the process works literally from like the beginning to the end, how long things take. Like they reached out to me to do this last November, and we didn't film until like a year later. And I think the script before that, they had optioned it like a couple of years before that. So like it takes a long time for things to get made. In terms of like, I guess I think I don't like, there's not one specific thing where I was like, oh, this is like my one takeaway as a director. It was more like, I learned so much just from like seeing things, like, and you learn from every different show or sketch or movie that you do. You learn different things because like the script is different, and like you'll take something else away each time. I was gonna say something else. There's one thing that I did learn. I don't remember.
No worries.
Wasn't important.
I was gonna say, like, it seems like it's like there's so much things going on as a director, and so many things can go wrong, like weather, weather, and all this. You know what I mean? Like, how did you adapt to that?
That was a big thing. Rolling with the punches, just like going. You try to plan as best as you can. Like there was like a day where we were supposed to be at a coffee shop the whole day, but then the next day was raining, and we were supposed to film some outdoor scenes but like we didn't want it to be raining, so we had to move those scenes to the coffee shop day. So we had to like rush through the coffee shop, and like we didn't like not rush like to the point where it's not good. Like we just had to be more efficient, be faster. So we got everything we needed, and like we tried to get those outdoor shots on the same day. So you gotta have to just like roll with the punches in terms of what curveballs are getting thrown at you, and the mistakes happen all the time. Like everyone makes mistakes, and you kind of just have to like try to keep like a cool energy on set, and like because as the dictator, you're also like you're the captain of the ship, and if you're stressed out, then the crew is stressed out. So you want to make sure that you are like, and I tried my best to do this, where it was like, even when I was stressed out, I'm still like trying to like make jokes and keep like the mood good, because like that's how you make sure that the crew is like gonna work for you when it comes down to crunch time. So yeah, just like always being nice and respectful to the whole crew, like just knowing everyone's names, like just being a good person and like being someone that you would want to work with. That's kind of how I approached it. And then yeah, you just kind of like call audibles when you have to, and move stuff around if you have to on the day. And you know, producers hate that sometimes because you're not following the schedule, but like sometimes we have no choice, and it makes their lives more difficult. But yeah, it's just a matter of like, it will be some chaos. Like there's no purely efficient, perfect, harmonious set. You know what I mean? Like there's money on the line, there's stress, there's
being that leader and like that director, how do you keep yourself grounded? You know what I mean? Like when you go home, you know, and you get away from all of it, how do you stay grounded?
Comedy. I make fun of things that I think are dumb. You know, like I would go out with Neema and Sammy after, the lead actors, and we would all just shoot the shit around dinner, after dinner, during dinner. We would just like shoot the shit about what the day was and like make fun of like, you know, silly things that happened and make jokes, and like that's like really how we unwinded. Yeah, that was pretty much it. And then like, you know, at the end of the day, it is like, it's one of those things where I think it's also just a mindset of like, it is what it is. Oh, that was what I was going to say earlier. It was, don't be afraid to fight your battles. That's what I learned. And I was doing that with my own sketches because I was the boss of them. Like it was like my script or whatever, like, you know, it's my choice what to do. But then I thought because I was going into this film, it's like a production company has stakes in it, that I would have to listen all the time. And I did listen a lot, but when I disagreed with them, I spoke up about disagreeing, and I offered alternatives, and I was like always like solution oriented, where I was like, okay, well, we can't do this for that reason. I don't agree with doing this. Let's find a solution that works for both of us. And don't be afraid to stand your ground if you believe in really strongly about something, because I think that there are a lot of like decisions that can be made, you know, that you just want to be happy with the final movie that comes out. And I know that there were some decisions that if I didn't stand by, I didn't think that the movie would be as strong as it could be.
Could you touch on a couple of those like key factor decisions?
Yeah, like I think like, you know, making sure that casting is done right, and like, you know, making sure that you're casting like the right people for the right roles, and making sure that like I like tried really hard when I was like casting it to make sure that, you know, I was casting a lot of people of color, because obviously like white people have so much history of like being cast in all the roles and whatever. So what I really liked about this script was that it was like a story about two Iranian cousins, and like the main characters were Iranian, and then like people around that as well. I wanted like the supporting cast to have a lot of diversity as well, which the script did, but I wanted to like just make sure that even in like the small roles here and there, like we're casting like a lot of people of color. Yeah, like there's that. There was like small things of like, like can I say this without it being a spoiler? Like there's like right at the beginning of the movie, our main character is looking at an apartment, and he really wants this condo. And one of like the things that production asked me was like, can we do it outside of the condo building? Like he's like, oh, this is the condo that I'm about to see. I really like, and I was like, no, that won't work, because the audience won't be as invested as seeing him inside the condo, like looking at like the kitchen and taking it all in, being like, wow, this could be my place that I'm going to live in. But producers are always trying to save money. So, you know, they were like, can we do this outside? Can we? And I had to fight really hard to be like, no, we need to I had to volunteer my own condo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the budget wasn't there. So I was like, I don't care. Like, I will volunteer my own condo. Let's film it in there for free, whatever. And then so we got that scene. So like I you know what I mean? Like,
You have to take those risks.
you have to take those risks. I had 30 strangers in my. They weren't strangers. We did it. It was supposed to be at the beginning of the shoot, but we ended up doing it at the end of the shoot. But I had 30 people inside my 650 square foot condo downtown Toronto.
But that shows so much passion though that you have towards all that. You didn't have to do that.
No, I didn't.
I mean?
But
And
I wanted the movie to be good.
Exactly. Right. Like, it has your name on it, like you said. So you want to make sure that you're represented good as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think we want to be rooting for this character, and I think we need to see what he wants. And so it was super important for me to have that, and so I made it work with whatever way that I could, So
where does all that passion come from? I guess what is your why for what you're doing?
Man, I wish it was a deeper meaning of when I was little, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I guess when I was little, I always wanted to have my own TV show, and I wanted, it was always something that I dreamed of doing. My parents were like, that's not a real job. And then I didn't think about it. But I guess getting into the industry now, my motivation is just I love to tell stories. I love to make people laugh. I think the best, my default state when I'm talking to people in everyday life, or if I'm if I'm out with people, or if I'm I can't think of another example, whatever. Literally whenever I'm out with people, my default is I want to make people laugh. And I think that I love telling stories, and I think that my passion is doing that. And if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do a good job of it. So I don't want to tell a story that's half-assed. I don't want to I want people to care. I want people to laugh, and also but feel good, or not even if it doesn't feel good, I want them to feel. I want them to have an emotional connection to the film. And I mean, the honest answer is that I got into the industry because I wanted to make people laugh. But to film a feature, you got to do more than make people laugh. You want to have a good story, because comedy movies that are comedies that are just for the sake of comedy, that's not really a thing. People go to watch a comedy movie now because they also want a decent story, and then the comedy will come from that. So I feel that was a really long answer, and I didn't fully answer your simple question of what motivates you.
I think you covered it. So you said you like comedy a lot. Have you ever thought of actually doing stand-up or something like that?
Yeah, for sure. I did stand up for about a month.
Oh, really? Can you tell us about that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. It was when I was first starting out. It was I had started doing improv classes, and I started doing some sketches, and then I started doing stand-up. And it was wild because I wrote a 5-minute set, and then I went and I did it at the Rivoli. And my first time ever. And then I remember the first half went pretty well, and the second half I bombed. It was terrible. And I was cool. And I had another show the next week at Yuck Yucks. And Yuck Yucks is a good crowd usually, because it's a bigger name. So I rewrote the second half of that set, and I took out the stuff that I didn't think landed. And then I went and I did my second set at Yuck Yucks, and I crushed. It was such an amazing feeling. It's truly like heroin. When you're on stage and you're telling jokes and the audience is laughing, it is it's unbelievable. It's an unreal feeling. And so I was oh, I'm an amazing stand-up. I'm a prodigy, whatever. And so I started going to other open mics. But the issue is that most amateur people didn't know who I was yet, right? Yeah. So the only option of me performing was going to amateur open mic nights. Yep. And most of the time, because no one knew me, I would sign up for this mic. I would get bumped, because I would end up being the last person to perform. It would be 1 a.m, and I would be performing to 2 other people in the audience that were both comedians that were also just waiting for their turn to go up, so they wouldn't laugh at anything. Yeah. So it was the high of performing in front of a big crowd at Yuck Yucks, and then the low of performing at 1 a.m. to 2 other comedians who are not laughing at you're performing in silence basically. They're not laughing at a thing that you're doing. It was just so it was so depressing. Yeah. And so I was I'm having so much more fun doing improv. I'm having so much more fun doing sketch comedy. I'm also, in the meantime, learning how to write TV pilots, because that's a whole other thing that you can't really go out and perform. You just got to learn that skill and do that on your own time. So I was learning how to write TV pilots and writing sitcoms and whatnot, and I was doing all of that. And I was I can't add stand-up, and I was also working, making a living, and I was I can't add stand-up to all of these things, because stand-up, you got to go out and do that almost every night as well to get good at it. And I was I can't do that and also improv and sketch and TV writing. I got to sacrifice something. So I sacrificed stand-up because I felt that it was like the least, like starting out in the open mic scene in Toronto is depressing, and I was like, that's the one I'm the least excited about right now. So I kind of sacrificed that. I'm really happy with where I am but to be completely honest, I think stand up, there's not much money in improv. Like it there's no really, like if you get to the main stage of Second City, that's great, but like few people make that. And then even once you finish the main stage, there isn't really anything other that you can do other than like TV writing and stuff. Whereas with stand up, you can take that anywhere in the world. You can do it on your own. Like with sketch comedy, I need a troupe. I need people doing stuff with me. With stand up, you can take that anywhere you want. You can perform anywhere you want. You can start to get real career opportunities. You can like open for celebrities and whatnot. You can start to like have your own shows. You can record a comedy album and have that play on the radio. You can make a good living off of that. Stand up has like so much more potential for like revenue and stuff, and then you can still get hired for the writing rooms and stuff.
Is that something you see yourself maybe dabbling in again?
I haven't ruled it out, but it is one of those things where, and the nice thing is that like now I'm more known in the community that like I could just message people being like, can I do your show?
We'll be there.
But it's going to be one of those things where I have to put in the hours now again to be good at stand up. Like I have some comedic sensibility from all of my sketch and improv training, but like stand up is a different skill. So now I have to like, if I were to do that, I'm kind of starting not from zero, but I am starting from an earlier stage again. So it's like, do I want to put in the time to start becoming good at stand-up when I maybe should be spending that time writing new scripts, like as a sample, or like making new sketches, like whatever. So it's kind of tough, but it is something that I've thought about. I haven't made a decision yet as to whether I will. Maybe once I have like a bunch of free time, I'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna dive into stand-up now. We'll see.
How did you make that connection with writing for the TV series?
So my first ever TV writing job came from meeting someone at Second City. Funny enough, I was working as an intern here, and I was like, just getting any job I possibly could. And I was working as someone who worked in the office. I was working as their assistant, and it was like such an unnecessary job. I was like printing papers and taping them to walls. It was like anyone could do this job. It was so not like, there's not much to it, but I worked really hard, and I made sure that like I was always on top of everything, and my boss really liked me. And my boss like was asking me, she was like, like, what do you want to do with your, like, why are you here? Like, what are your aspirations? And I was like, I want to be a TV writer. My favorite show is The Office, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is like my dream. And she was like, my cousin wrote on The Office. And I was like, okay.
Small world.
She was like, I'll introduce you to him one day. So I was like, great. Like, fast forward 6 months or whatever, the Second City, we have a holiday party at the Second City, and then she pulls me aside and she's like, hey, my cousin is here, let me introduce you. And so she introduces me to Anthony Farrell, who is one of the writers on The Office for season 5 or whatever. I think it was season 5. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anthony Farrell, who is a writer on The Office, and he basically, we got to know each other, and we like, shot the shit for like an hour, maybe 2 hours, like at the party. And then by the end of it, he was like, send me one of your scripts. Like, I'd love to take a look at what you've done. So I did. I got his email. I sent him some of my sketches, and I sent him one of my scripts. And he responded being like, hey, love your sketches. They're super funny. Give me like a month to review the script, and I'll get back to you. A month goes by. He emails me back. He's like, yeah, this is a great script. Here are some notes that I have on it. Fix that up and like send it back to me. And then I'm like, I'm going to be staffing for my own show down the road. So I did all of that, fixed the script up based on all of his notes, sent it back to him. He was like, great, love it. I'll reach out in the summer. Summer comes and goes. I didn't hear from him. I followed up. He's like, yeah, things got postponed. I'll keep you posted like when things come up again. He reaches out to me in like November to interview for his writer's room. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. And I go in for the interview, and he's like, yeah, we'll let you know by the new year. And then the new year comes around, and like delays, I've just been saying it takes so long to make stuff sometimes. Excuse me. I run into him in March, And he was like, yeah, we're going to find out next week whether we get the green light or not. I was like, amazing. This was March of 2020.
Damn.
Oh,
So
COVID.
literally, that's when it happened. Dog.
literally, and
Oh
then
my.
they went forward with the writers' room, and then I didn't get asked to join the writers' room. Like they went forward way later, and I didn't get asked for that one. I don't know if it was like if he just wasn't gonna hire me, or if like maybe the budget was affected. No idea what happened. But he then reached out to me like 6 months after that, in September of 2020. To hire me for a different show that he was doing. And he hired me for a week, which was great because then I was like, oh, cool. Like he did still like me enough to like hire me or give me a shot for something, even if I wasn't a fit for his first room. But yeah, then he hired me for that room, and then that was like in September of 2020, and I was like, I'm a TV writer now, like whatever. And then like no jobs came my way, like nothing else after that. So then I kept releasing sketches, and we released Habib. And then Habib fully changed my life. Like everything changed after that. Anthony reached out to me. He was like, I just saw Habib. That was so funny. I just put your name forward for a writing job, like that. My friends are looking for someone to like be a script coordinator on Roast Battle. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. And then I got that job through Anthony's connection. And then what else happened was these producers saw Habib and they were like, we want to turn this into a TV show, like blah, blah, blah. So they optioned my script. And then that production company ended up making the show Children Ruin Everything. So I got hired. They were so impressed with the script that I wrote for Habib that they hired me to write on Children Ruin Everything. And then I was writing on Roast Battle. I was a script coordinator on Roast Battle, which is like a writing assistant kind of thing. Yeah. But I pitched a bunch of jokes in the second season that got into the show that they gave me a writing credit. And the third season I got brought back as just a writer, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but like that Habib video like changed everything for me. Like that's what got me, through the door. And then the producers were like, well, what scripts do you have? Or like, what jokes can you make? And then I was like, well, here are jokes, here are scripts, whatever. And then I ended up actually like getting writing work out of it, which was awesome.
That's sweet. Well, how is like the roast battle? Like how that kind of like writing for that, is it hard to make these jokes or like?
Yeah, it's a different, it's sometimes hard and sometimes not. It just really depends. I think like it gets hard the longer you do it because you've run out of material. It's like I've made so many jokes about Russell Peters, doing his Indian accent. Like I don't know what else to make fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gets hard, but at the beginning it's like fun because you have like a bunch of new material that you can work with. Like it's been a year since the last time you wrote, so like so many jokes of like world events that you can make fun of or whatever. And then yeah, like it is a different skill though, because it's not like in a writer's room where you're like for Children and Everything, for example, you're in the writer's room and you are like pitching story ideas, and then it's like, okay, then this happens and then that happens. So it's like a whole collaborative experience. Whereas with Roast Battle, it was very much like, okay, everyone go off, write jokes. We'll come back for an hour at the end of each day. We'll pitch all of our jokes and we'll see what gets in. You know what I mean? It was like very individual. Then we would come together.
So roast battle is when you're like roasting one individual, right?
Sorry.
No worries.
So the way Roast Battle works is they start off with like the host, and he starts off with a monologue that's like, Roast Battle is like this and Roast Battle is like that. And then he just makes a bunch of jokes, and then he makes fun of all the judges, and the judges roast, the host Ennis back. They roast him, and then they go back and forth, and then Ennis introduces two comedians. Two comedians come out, the two comedians roast each other, and then the
Do
judges,
they know that they're battling each other beforehand? Or?
They do, yeah.
Oh, they do.
Because they have to write jokes about each other.
Okay, so they have that time.
So they know the matchups.
Yeah.
And then they make jokes about each other, and then the judges will decide who wins.
Yeah.
So that's basically the format.
So it's okay. I thought it was like an improv thing. I was gonna say, let's roast Coca right now. Let's. what are some jokes you can get on Coca? But if it's not
we usually have time to write those jokes.
Yeah. So
you put me on the spot.
He has a plan, so.
Yeah, you know I love you though.
That's kind of weird. But working on Children Ruin Everything, how was that?
It was a cool experience. Like that was my first like proper narrative writer's room. Everyone in the writer's room is so funny. And yeah, it was interesting as well joining like in the second season because they had done the first season without me. Yeah. Then you're coming in season 2, and it's not imposter syndrome of like I don't belong here, but it is a little bit of like, oh, they don't know me yet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, well, why is this person here? Like, what made him good enough to join this room? This is all in my head. This is not like how, like, they were so nice and welcoming. But in your head, you're like, oh, I need to prove that I was good enough to be hired for like season 2. So that's how I felt a little bit. But then, like, yeah, you make a couple of jokes, you get people to laugh, and then they warm up to you. And then, like, you know, then you become like part of the family. So yeah, that was like pretty much, it was a good experience. Like, everyone's super funny, and I got to write like 2 episodes. One was co-written with someone else, and one was like by myself, which was awesome. So yeah.
Nice. I guess what are a couple things that you're looking forward to in the next couple years? Like, what are your next like goals? I know it's kind of cliche, but like, what are you looking forward to?
I mean, I would love to. I'm hoping to move to LA in the very near future. I would love to write for like cool TV shows like that I am already a fan of. You know what I mean? Like with a lot of things like in the Canadian industry, I do watch some Canadian shows, but there's a lot of shows that like I'll like hear about the show and then I'll like watch it so that I could be considered for the opportunity, whereas like I would love to write for a show that I already know that I would love to, like, you know what I mean, like if It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia wanted to hire me as a writer, like that would be my dream. Or like if I got hired to like write on a Marvel show, like that would be unreal. And then obviously I want to make my own shows. Like I want to create, you know, my own sitcom and like get to be in it and get to like have some fun cameos and stuff. Like that would be the dream.
I feel like you kind of need to have some sort of like business entrepreneurial self in you to be taking on the challenges that you're taking, like running a team and like being creative and like was that always part of you, or do you feel like you had to grow into that business person? Or
no, I think it was always a part of me, and I get a lot of it from my dad. My dad is like a workaholic, and he's so like he owned his own business for I don't know 20 years. So I think I have a lot of those qualities just like innately, and I kind of mentioned that I'm a little bit of a control freak, but I think it is like one of those things that does, I think you could probably grow into it. I don't know. Like I mean, you do grow into certain things. Like there were a lot, especially in the film industry. Like I didn't know a lot. I didn't go to film school. I just learned by doing. So you do grow into like being more competent and being better at things. But yeah, there are like, at the end of the day, it's such a difficult industry. And if you're not, like what you said, like if you're not grinding and like putting together all of these things that like require a whole team or like whatever, it's just so much harder to break in. So you kind of have to really, really, like I kind of sacrificed a lot of my social life and like my first 4 years of trying to break into the industry, like all I did was write or perform or like working at Second City or whatever I was doing. Like a lot of my friends from like high school and university were like didn't see me for 4 years basically. Like I fully just like lived and breathed comedy.
Isn't it kind of crazy
writing.
how like you're the only one who sees those 4 years of like not being like, you know, like not being able to go with your friends but just grinding, like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people, I feel like they just see the success, like the end part of it, right?
100%. Yeah, it's like, oh, who's this new person that just blew up? Like they blew up overnight, and it's like, no, they didn't blow up overnight. They've been secretly putting in the work, not secretly, but they've been like low key putting in all the work, like without anyone's knowledge or like, you know, whatever it is. Not to like the big public's knowledge. They've been grinding, they've been doing their thing, and then when they do blow up, it's because they had that opportunity, they were ready for it, and then like they took advantage of that, and then like
I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like nowadays, like in this time, like people think like the hard work is gone, you know, like you can get things so quickly, or like with social media, and like, you know, like people think they can get famous like ASAP, but like you got to put in the work, and like that, I feel like that's not appreciated as much.
It's that instant satisfaction that you can get just from like just getting a like or something like that. I think we also try to apply that to our lives, where it's like, give me this now, and then you don't want to reap the success of actually getting there through skill or like hard work.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's like, we're so accustomed to instant gratification, but it is like one of those things where I think if you, let's say you put out one sketch and it went viral and you're like now an overnight hit, chances are if you haven't been putting in that work before, you're not gonna be able to sustain that. But if you have been putting in the work and then you blow up, like someone like Neema, who had been putting in videos, like he'd been making all these videos and then he eventually blew up, and then he kept doing it because he like already learned. You know what I mean? Like he's now opening for Russell Peters, but he's doing stand-up for like 7 years before, you know what I mean? Hustling. Like I was putting in, this is my 6th year of doing stuff, and like people are like, oh my god, like you blew up this year, and I'm like, yeah, but I was like grinding. I didn't see my friends for 4 years. You know, so yeah.
I guess for someone younger who wants to break into like the entertainment industry, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice to give that person?
One, just do things. Just never think like, you know, if you've always wanted to do stand up, just go out and do it. Don't always think like, oh, you know, I gotta wait for like the perfect material or whatever. Like, just go out of your way and do it, and then learn from it, and then just keep doing it. Number 2, make things. I think making things is like the best way to get discovered. Even as if you only want to be an actor, like there's just like a million actors, right? Like there's 2 options for you. One, you could like wait and knock at the door and wait for someone to open it. Hopefully, maybe they'll never open it for you. Or you could bang the door down and go in yourself. And I thought that by like making my own stuff that was undeniably funny, that was like good quality, good content, I could prove like, oh, I'm going to be helpful to I can make you good content, so it's going to be enticing for production companies to like take a chance on me and hire me, because like it's not really taking a chance because they've seen the work that I've done. Like I've written good stuff, I've produced good stuff, you know, it's getting views or whatever it is. So yeah, you're kind of like not giving them a choice, you're making them notice you. And then number 3, what's number 3? Take risks. I think that they all kind of go together. Like just do it and make stuff and take risks. Take risks. Yeah. Like I hear this all the time where people are like, oh my God, it's so cool that you broke into that you just left everything behind and like got into entertainment. I've always wanted to do comedy. And it's like, well, then just do it. Just try. Like go and take one class. Like you don't have to go out and just like, you know, perform stand-up right away, but like take a stand-up class that will teach you how to be good at it. And then, you know, you're not going to be an expert, but like by the end of the 7 weeks, you'll have a set and you'll have a performance that you can do or whatever. And if you don't take, it's in every field. If you don't take risks, if you want to start a business, you have to just do it and take that risk, and it might fail and you learn from it and do something else next time. You take those lessons, or, you know, you might be successful. That's the only way to know, is to just take the risk and do it.
I feel like there's so many talented people out there, man, who just aren't taking that risk. And it's sad to see. You know what I mean? Like even like in my network, I feel like I know so many people, if they actually just did it and just said fuck it and took that risk, they could make something out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
What do you think keeps us there?
Being comfortable, honestly. I think it's just like, it's even too, like I could say for myself, like where I'm working, it keeps me really comfortable with like not making these crazy decisions or like going above and beyond sometimes. Like even like the podcast, right? This is now us taking it serious, where I'm like, you know, my job, it's nice, but I'd sacrifice it to do this any day. And I think it goes back to like, you have to be uncomfortable so that you can actually be successful in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only way that you can grow. Just get out of your comfort zone.
Bang.
And you don't need to like, you know, drop everything. And like what I did was like, I kept my finance job and I started doing comedy at night.
Yeah.
Until eventually I was able to like fully get into comedy. But yeah, you can do that. You can just like try things, like take the risk, and you know, yeah, you don't have to like fully go into like being financially uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, keep doing what you're doing, but try to find the time to like take that risk. That's like something new and something different, and then you never know where it'll lead.
And like there's so many things you could try too. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like a lot of people, if you're not happy in the situation that you're in, try this. If that doesn't work, try that. If that doesn't work, try this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just like, why do you think like you just try one thing? If that fails, you stop.
Yeah, and even what he said, it's like it doesn't have to happen overnight. If you like just do it once over and over and over, you'll get there one day, right?
I swear the KFC man started KFC when he was like 70.
There you go.
Or something like that, right?
I don't know, maybe.
I swear, bro.
I'm just saying, yeah. I have no idea. But
Yeah, I'm like,
man, that
you know-
fucking, like the
You know
colonel,
what?
bro.
I'm just not gonna say because I don't know.
Yeah, no. I guess we're sort of, you know, like running out of time here. Is there anything that you want to like promote or anything you want to let our audience know before you know, we wrap it up?
Plug
here?
in anything?
Any plugins?
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to check out my sketch channel, Wishful Genies, we actually do have a couple of new sketches coming out that I had some time to work on. Check out the film. I was gonna say the title. We don't know what the title of the film is gonna be. It's currently called Harbor House, but it probably is gonna change. But check out the film directed by Rob Michaels, starring Neema Naz and Sammy Azero. Legends. Also, I swear, I think Sammy's the main. Starring Sammy Azero and Neema Naz. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's
That's
pretty
awesome.
much
We'll
it.
make sure to add all the information, on the screen or in the bios. But like honestly,
Yeah.
We'll be there. We'll
thank
put
you
it.
so much for taking the time. And this is a beautiful place, Second City. I've never been in here, but when I walked in, I was like, holy, this
Amazing.
shit's serious.
And we got here too. Like what? It was finished 3 days ago. You said?
Yeah, they
So, like,
just opened this new location.
Yeah, so it's
It's a
awesome.
gorgeous theater. Yeah, take classes at the Second City if you want. That's how I got my start.
maybe they'll run
Um,
into you.
It's a little free advertising
Yeah.
for them. Shout outs to them for letting us use their space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and follow me on Instagram if you want to see some
Good
stupid
comedy.
posts here and there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks for everyone who watched the whole video. Cheers.
Peace.
Peace.